Hello, everyone. Welcome to Spark It Up 360, where we spark conversations that ignite faith, purpose, and real life experience. In today's episode, we're going to look at a very important topic, a topic that says the battle every teenager must win. Now, you all will believe with me, you believe me that there are a lot of battles that today's teenagers are facing, and most at times they face or confront these battles alone. Not even their parents are aware of what they are passing through. Most of the times, it's only their friends that assist them to navigate through those waters.
Yeah.
So, in today's conversation, I have with me amazing people, a gentleman and a lady that will assist us in looking at this topic holistically and then bringing their perspective and wisdom and experience to the topic. By my right, I have Jacob Abatunde Fabumi, and then by my left, I have
Me, met Daniel.
you're highly welcome, guys.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
So I would like to start this way. Mr. Jacob, what do you think are, in summary, what do you think are those battles that today's teenagers or the present dispensation teenagers are passing through?
Okay, teenagers or the teenage age
Yes.
is a period between childhood and adulthood. And one of the major challenges teenagers are facing within that period of 13 to 19 is the transition challenge. How do they move from childhood to adulthood? Now, moving from childhood to adulthood implies how do they move from being controlled to the controller of their actions, their thoughts, and everything about
Being
them.
controlled,
Being controlled and
being the controller.
to being the controller
Okay.
themselves. That's the major challenge. If you look at it from, okay, maybe peer pressure, social media influence, choice of a course to study, what to become, who am I, and so on. All these things center on, I am living a period where my parents decide who I am for me, to a period where I am the determinant of who I become.
Thank you so much. I think we'll look into this further. Can you say anything on this?
Okay, so I think one of the major challenges is the identity crisis for me because teenagers are really struggling to know who they really are. They are faced with different people in their classroom, in the environment where they grow up, and the rest of it. So they may want to be like A, they may want to be like B. Maybe A is somebody they admire, the background, the parenting, and the rest of it. So they get to struggle with this identity crisis of who they are. And another thing is peer pressure. They get pressurized, and if you don't know who you are, it's kind of very difficult for you to not succumb to those things as a teenager.
Thank you so much. Mr. Jacob, I will return back to you. Do you think these battles are more internal battles or external? And then I want you to also contribute to this. Is it the internal battles, is it more than the external battle, or are they all the same?
Okay, thank you very much, sir. This battle is both internal and external. Now, they are primarily internal when it has to do with their psychology, their emotions, curiosity, adventurousness, and so on, or adventure, things that live in their head, things that they want to check out to see the possibilities or the impossibilities around them. Now, those things are internal. A child asking questions at the teenage age as it has to do with identity is internal. A child that allows peers to influence is as a result of the internal part is not well built. So the struggle is an internal battle. However, the trigger to the struggle are external. Now, someone who is thinking about identity, when you look at identity, there are other factors you've seen around you that you are using to judge, oh, do I fit into this? Do I fit into that? Now, so your choice of identity, for instance, or the struggle of identity is a function of what you see around you, but as the trigger, but it's a consciousness inside you that brings about that. When you're looking at maybe choice of friends and the rest, it's a matter of what you decide internally. This is how I want to be. This is what I want to be. However, you have triggers around you externally. So, like you asked earlier, the internal part seems to be the primary and the major part of the struggle, while the external part is just like a trigger to what is internal.
Thank you so much. Now, Mr. Jacob says something. He said that the battles are more of internal, or rather, they are primarily internal battles.
Yeah.
Now, do you think teenagers even recognize or even understand that they are in a battle? Because I'm sorry, why did I ask this? If the battles are more of internal, you can have an internal battle, especially when it comes to teenagers, and yet not recognize that
That
you are in a
you're
battle
struggling with.
or you are even struggling. Thank
Yes.
you.
Yeah, so some teenagers are very self-aware. There's how you can talk to a teenager and be like, was I like this when I was 15 years to get? But there are some teenagers that you know that somebody just needs to hold his or her hands to tell him that this is what you're struggling with. Some of them are aware of what they are struggling with, battles that they are fighting. And reason is that there are some parents that are very, very interested in their children or child well-being, right? So they really want to make sure that my child is aware of it. I have some teenagers that I personally like the way they were being brought up because they are self-aware. But there are some that you see, they don't know that they are struggling with something. So you have to tell them that, see, this is what you need. This is what you need. So that is where parenting really comes in. So that you have to point it to your children that when you get to a certain stage in your life, you need to be able to decide, this is who I am, this is what I want.
Thank you so much. You know, you made mention of identity, especially identity crisis when it comes to teenagers. Why do you think identity is very key and very important to teenagers?
Oh, I mean, it is very, very important because if you don't know who you are, even as an adult, you're going to follow the crowd and you're going to miss in there, right? If as a child, your parents teaches you how to pray, how to read the Bible, how to wash your clothes, how to know that you're not well dressed, you're not covered, you're not decent enough, and the rest of it. That stays with you. So even when you go outside the umbrella of your parents, you will know that no, this is not who I am. Yeah, this is not me. So that sticks. Identity is very important in a child because if a child knows his or her identity, there's no way he's going to be misled. You can't take him out of what has been imprinted in his head. He knows that no, my mom said I shouldn't do this. My dad said I shouldn't do this. That's so.
Thank you so much. Mr. Jacob, how can a teenager build a very strong sense of identity that cannot be easily being swayed or carried away by any other form of teaching or anything that will tend to mislead that individual? How can he build that strong sense of identity?
Okay, like I said earlier, identity is internal and then triggered from the external. Now you have to build your mind. I would say the struggle of identity of every teenage child is as a result of the emotional development of the child is not complete, the psychological development of the child is not complete, and even physiological development of the child is not totally complete for that stage. Now, for it to be well built, parents, number one, are supposed to be aware that I need to help this child build all these parts. And it has to do with the lifestyle of the parent first.
Are you trying to say that parents have a very key role to play in assisting the teenagers?
Very well, sir.
Yes.
Because remember I said they are in a transition stage. That stage they are is like a stage of confusion. Confusion in between childhood and adulthood. Now, the whole of their life from childhood to that point was controlled by their parents. Now, at that point, it is controlled by both the parents, they themselves, and their environment. So, at that point, you realize that what they've been molded into before they get to that point has a very long way to go in determining the external influence, in determining how they see themselves. So the identity struggle of a child, how it can be controlled is ensure that there's a mental development. What are the kind of books you introduce your child to at an early stage for emotional development? What are the kind of movies you expose your child to at an early stage, pre-teenage age, for mental development, emotional stability, psychological development? Now, what character do you display? Also, even as parents, are you a parent that cannot differentiate your left from right on some matters of life, and you put them forward to the sight of your children also? So, a child that is brought up in a home where the parent could not decide authoritatively, this is what we want for the family, this is how the family should be, you realize that that child will start struggling with decision making at that stage. So how to help a child lessen the struggle of identity is to ensure that that child is well molded before he or she gets to that stage.
And another thing, right, is the fact that some parents just hand life into their child. See,
So you say they don't.
they just hand life into their child. Like, there are some environments where you were born into. You don't even know when you have left childhood to teenager to an adult. So you grow by yourself, right? In that situation, you just have to learn how to do everything on your own. And if it's not a child that have self-awareness, right, that child is going to be exposed to a whole lot of things that nobody told him that, see, fornication is bad, you don't need to do this, you don't need to do that. And he just woke up and somebody is already telling him, see, I'll give you money, see, I'll do this. That child is already lost because they handed him life. Like, they just get back to him. Before you know, you're selling in the market. Before you know, you're coming back around 10 o'clock. Nobody is telling you this. So most children, most teenagers just wake up to be a teenager themselves. And they just grow by force to be a teenager. So it's a struggle. If you see that kind of teenager, you know that he's struggling to, balance life. And before you know, they're already adults, and so much instability, and they move it to pass it to their next generation, generation that did not know how, they weren't trained, so they don't even know how to train. So they keep passing that instability into their children, and you now see a whole messed up generation.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Sir, before we move, I would just like to say this. I think most importantly for female teenagers. Now, the mother, the father, or the family has a very great role to play. Now, what you didn't tell them,
Yeah,
someone else will tell them.
definitely.
And the version that might be told to them might not be the version they were supposed
Yeah.
to know.
Okay.
So, there's this self-awareness a girl has when she's beginning to develop hips, develop breast, and then there's this perception they begin to have of themselves.
Yeah.
Now, the information you don't give to them, the correct information you don't give to them, it is either adulterated and given to them, or the wrong information will be given to them at the end of the day. So to help them in that stage, you just have to be with them through the teenage stage and inform them correctly.
Okay, thank you so much. You guys made mention of something. You made our viewer to understand that there are three factors that will shape a teenager into becoming who he or she will be. And the first thing Mr. Jacob said is that the parent have a key role to play in the child's life in assisting him or her to find himself. And the second thing is that he himself, what he thinks of himself. And then the third thing you said is the external factor, which is the society or the peer pressure. Now, I want us to take this conversation a little bit deeper. Let's look at peer pressure and then also societal influence. Now, is it really dangerous, societal influence and then peer pressure, how dangerous it is in the life of a teenager? I'd like to start with you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Peer pressure is peer pressure when it is negative.
Okay.
Is there a positive peer pressure?
Yes, maybe you see your mates doing well academically, and then you are influenced, and that
That's
your mates
influence.
that's a
pressure.
positive influence.
Yeah.
So, and it becomes, let's say, let me put it this way: there was a girl that came to me recently, and like I came second. I can't imagine myself coming second. Now, look at the person that came first position in the class. The difference in our average is just 0.3
Oh.
in the average. Now, there's a pressure there.
Yes.
There's a pressure from the peer. My peer is doing better.
Thank you so much. I think you were trying to say something. What's the difference between pressure and then also influence?
Right?
I think we need to also create a balance.
Because when you say pressure, to me, I think it's a bit more on the negative part, right? But influence is more on both sides, right? A teenager can be influenced positively, can be influenced negatively. Now, influence is more of you. Like you just want to be influenced, you just give yourself in for influencing, right? But for pressure, you see that it's being forced on you, and your inner self also is not like somebody is forcing the pressure on you. Your inner self too is forcing you to look like that person, right? And most times it's always on you're always on a negative side, right? Peer pressure is always on, most times it could be on a positive side, but it is more on a negative side to a positive side most times.
Thank you so much for that. Now, we made mention of something which is peer pressure, and most of the times, what the parent did not teach their teenagers, their peers will teach them.
Right.
And most of the times, because their peers also they have little understanding of the topic or whatever it is, they might not be able to guide them effectively or positively. Now, I want us to look at it this way. How can a teenager stand his ground and refuse to be influenced negatively?
For a teenager to stand his ground, he must have, should I say, self-awareness of where am I coming from? Who am I? Where am I going?
So when you say where am I coming from, what do you mean by that?
Okay, let me use this. A child coming from a home where smoking, whether by older siblings, parents, is a norm. Everybody smoke into the parlor, into the room, and you grew up in that kind of environment. You realize that there will be not so much of pressure to make you smoke out there.
Yeah.
So, but if you are from a home where the Bible is what everybody goes in, go out with, you realize that there's a need for someone to force you, for you to think of those kind of things. Now, the awareness of where am I coming from? When you are coming from a background, a disciplined background, a background that teaches Christ, a background that teaches, let me say, conservative culture generally, there are things that you get aware of. Even if I want to do it, where I'm coming from, this does not align with it. So, who am I at this point? Now, you begin to define your personality, your identity. When you are able to define that, you now know that no, this does not represent me, or this is who I am. So, I can align with it. Where am I going to? Even when I don't have a positive identity, but maybe from parenting to things that I've read, things I've heard, conferences maybe I've been opportune to attend, whether videos I've been able to see, I now realize that no, for me to become a medical doctor, I shouldn't be a smoker at age 14. So for me to survive, what's it called? The university, I don't have to put up characters, laziness in secondary school. So you realize that where am I coming from? Where am I? Where am I going to? Becomes a chain which, if the child puts together properly, will help the child to be able to overcome peer pressure at the very moment. Because you'll be able to look retrospect and then you'll be able to reflect forward also.
Okay, Oyemi, I would like to throw that same question to you, but I want you to look at it this way. We all understand what pressure is. As adults, we should or we know what pressure is. Now, imagine your house rent is due. and your landlord has been knocking on your door, pressurizing you,
Okay.
or probably you have a lot of financial pressure,
Yeah.
or probably a lot of pressure from your place of work, it will give you sleepless nights. So a pressure is pressure, and most of the times it look very simple to say you should stand to your ground. Don't I understand?
Yeah.
But when you find yourself in those kind of situations, especially for teenagers who are still trying to understand themselves, I think, how do you think, what perspective will you bring into this conversation? How do you think a teenager will be able to stand his or her ground when he's being pressurized from all angles to do the negative thing?
Okay, I always tell my teenagers that say something, talk to somebody, right?
Say something.
Say something, talk to somebody, right? Now, self awareness is very important. If you bring something that is not, does not align to the child's upbringing and what the child wants to be, a self-aware child should be able to, yeah, this is not right. My mom taught me this, my teacher taught me this, and the rest. I'm not going to do it. And if you find yourself being more pressured on it, talk to somebody. Talk to that teacher, talk to your mom. If you cannot talk to your mom, right, maybe because of kind of strict parenting, some things are not being said in the house, you should have a teacher that you can trust. I mean, teacher that you know you can trust. You should have a Sunday school teacher you know you can trust, or an auntie around you you know you can trust. Talk to someone. You should be able to ask another person, is this thing right? Right? So that is why open parenting is very important. I mean, partnership, friendship, because a child is going to tell you, Mommy, wait, is it right that I have to do this? But if you give them that opportunity to be open, they're not going to say, they're not going to tell you that. So they keep struggling with it. And with that struggling, if that child is not self-aware, is going to succumb to it. But I used to tell them, talk to somebody.
Okay,
tell me what's your problem. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you so much. If you're a teenager and you're watching this episode, I would like you to understand that whenever you are facing a lot of pressure, please try to open up to someone. There is always someone you can talk to.
Yeah.
If it is not your parent, it could be your pastor. If it's not your pastor, it could be that uncle in your class. It's not your uncle in the class. It could be someone in your environment, in your church or close to you. Just talk to someone is very important. Then if you are a parent, I will encourage you to make your teenager your best friend.
Yeah.
You should be your teenager's first friend and best friend. Is very important. Thank you so much. Okay, Mr. Jacob, I would like to ask you this question. How important is spirituality in overcoming these temptations or these battles that teenagers are facing? Is it having any importance?
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Spirituality has to do with the realm beyond what you see. And there's this general saying that the spirit realm controls the physical realm. Now, when your spirit, the way I used to measure it is this. When I dream, sometimes how I act in my dream is different from how I would act physically. And I always tell myself that the way I'm acting in the dream, that's my spirit. That's the way ordinarily my spirit is aligned. And then the way I do physically is now maybe, okay, my spirit plus other information I have. Now, it is very important that you build up your spirit as an individual. And for a teenager, if your spirit is not well built, it will be very easy for your physical being to be manipulated and controlled, to be pressured into what you don't want to be. When your spirit is well built, I would say you won't be afraid to be different. If everybody is doing it and you feel it is wrong, even if it is not wrong, that's one thing I always say. In as much as your spirit has convinced you that this is wrong, take note, even when it is not wrong, you will stand your ground. I'm not joining. Everybody might be right, but you feel they are all wrong, you won't join. Now, not to talk of when you know that they are wrong. You realize that because your spirit has been well built, your mental being has now been, should I say, well informed and conformed to your spirit. You realize that your physical being will just act in alignment with what your spirit is already. So it is very important you develop your spirituality as a teenager. Develop your spirit. If you are a Christian child, ensure that your spirit aligns with the Spirit of God. Your spirit is as the Spirit of Christ. The Spirit that lived in Jesus can be seen in you. Thank you very much.
Okay, so yeah,
Yes, go ahead.
that the importance of spirituality in a teenager, it cannot be overemphasized. Because if you're spiritually sound as a teenager, it's going to direct you, right? Normally, even as an adult, you see that most times, if your spirit is sound, there are some places you want to enter. No, I don't want to enter. So spirituality is going to help guide a child, right? It's going to help him in decision making. Yeah, so it's very important.
Do you think God has any role to play in the teenager's behavior decision?
I mean, he created all of them and he created all of us. So he does, and it's always important that we put our children in a way of God, because see, I learned something that is only the devil that forces himself on someone. God doesn't. So even if God created a child, created me, created you, created all the teenagers watching us right now, if you don't go for God, he won't force himself on you. Especially a child that was being brought up in a Christian home, you know that this is right and you just want to backslide. God won't force himself, but the devil will force himself on you. So God is very important, but you need to be the one to chase after Jesus. We want to be like Jesus. It's not Jesus wanting to be like us, right? Yeah.
Thank you so much. Mr. Jacob, for a
Yes, sir.
teenager who wants to grow spiritually, is watching this episode, where should he start from?
Okay, the first thing is the Word of God. You have to consume the Word of God like it's your oxygen. Every bit of the Word of God, the Bible, that's the written Word now,
Yeah.
should be part of you. It should be that if I breathe in, at least I should have the Word of God. That very second, I breathe out, I should have the Word of God. So when your life is at that level, your spirit is now being built. Then you now come to the place of the spiritual conversation, where your spirit can converse with God in the spirit realm, which is prayer. Now, prayer becomes your lifestyle. You started from the lifestyle of the word. Now, you have the word in you. It is difficult for anybody to tell you anything as against what the word is. Now, you develop a life of prayer. Then you now develop an intentional lifestyle.
Intentional.
A lifestyle that, okay, this is what the word of God says, irrespective of whatsoever pressure I might face as a teenager. Let me put it this way. It is not easy when you face pressure. Now, imagine as a teenager, you're writing WAEC, and let's say you're retaking WAEC the second time, and you're not good at mathematics, for instance, and you're sitting at maths, and they are writing the answers on the board. It's not like, oh, you have to bring out your phone or you have to bring out a chip or whatsoever. Where you are writing, the answers are being copied on the board for you to copy from. Now, the amount of the word of God you have in you will be your conviction to choose not to look up and copy from it. So, to develop your spirit, number one is you have to develop your knowledge of the word of God. Then you now have to develop a prayer life. Thank you, sir.
You say what you want to say?
Yeah, I said I'm being intentional.
I'm being intentional.
Yeah, I'm being intentional.
Now, if you are to give a teenager watching this program an advice, what would that advice be?
Oh, my babies. The sky is so big. The sky is so big. You can be anything you want to be. I used to say that there's nothing limiting you as a child of God, right? You have God, you have yourself, you have all the time. Don't let anybody tell you you don't have the time. You have all the time to be what you want to be. So don't be in a rush. Don't let anything pressure you to pick what you don't want. So just take all the opportunity you see and just be great.
Thank you very much, sir. I would like to tell them that they should understand that the consequence of their decisions now travel far beyond the now.
Mm.
If you make the wrong choice now, you might not know you're making the wrong choice. 10 years, 20 years, you wish you could turn back the hands of time, but you may not be able, you won't be able to at that point. So be intentional about your decisions now. Make your choices deliberately and intentionally based on the word of God, based on counsel of elders that have walked the road before you. Then listen to advice. When an elderly person is giving you an advice, place it with the word of God. Then judge it. Does this align with the word of God? If it aligns, intentionally just find a way to follow it. Reason is the mistake you make as a teenager, the consequence of it might last entire lifetime. And you might end up living in regrets, or you might end up appreciating that you made the right decision as a teenager. So my advice as a way of concluding to every teenager watching this is, please be very, very careful how you live your teenage age. It's just a span of 6-7 years. However, the implication of that 6 to 7 years, positive or negative, lasts a lifetime. Thank you.
Okay, to add to what Mr. Jacob said, when I was a teenager, there was a quote by a philosopher that really assisted me, that shaped my teenage age. And it says, today's decisions are tomorrow's reality. It means that whatever you decide to do today to become your reality tomorrow. Now, you may be doing it, or you may be taking those decisions now and thinking that you are going scot-free without any implications. But the implications and consequences might wait for you in the future. Now, to you watching us, do your best, be the best, trust God, and then God will help you. Thank you so much. This is Spark It Up 360, and we're glad to have you. See you in the next episode. Thank you. Bye.